now looking at what is gonna ahead of us in these 2 hours. A brief welcome on my side and touch point on the CATALYST, and then I have invited our youth advisors of the project to give 2 small fireside talks on future perspectives. And I'm happy to have with me today Floris van der Merwe from Alto Design Factory, and then also Lara Christine from EFLA Consultancy in Iceland, who are both sharing future perspectives from an industry and from an academic side. Afterwards, we have the 1 hour and 20 minutes of student pitches, including feedback, and then a handover of the certificate, followed by the closing and maybe some networking. And again, feel free to switch on your camera, but mute your mic when you're not speaking. And if you have any questions or would like to bring a comment, just raise your hand or open your camera, that's also fine. So as I have mentioned, the CATALYST project was born in the beginning of this year with the aim to connect young professional students and researchers to established companies across the Nordics to accelerate their transition into a more sustainable circular-led business, but at the same time also help them to and train them to become change makers. We do this in different angles and levels. Mainly, these are 4 main categories. Eva has mentioned, it is the industry university collaboration, where we are hoping to engage and inspire through this case collaboration and challenge-based approach learnings, the companies with interesting insights and learnings to speed their circular economy transition. We are developing a toolkit jointly with the partners and the youth advisors to help young students and professionals to develop these tools and methods to be applied in their everyday life. That then going to be spread through train-the-trainer workshops. We have access of challenges and cases in our project bank. And lastly, we are trying to build this Nordic changemaker community jointly with Nordic Innovation and Nordic Circular Hotspot to basically have one common point where we could connect, engage, and knowledge share. The main focus within the CATALYST is very broad, and that is also thankfully to the different perspectives and research angles the partner universities are bringing in. So it's starting from circular economy readiness and opportunity mapping over to business model creation servitization, to circular economy products by eco-design, enhancement by digitalization, but also closing the loop strategies. And these 5 principles has been taken off an earlier undertaken research project across the Nordics that is called Circuit Nordic, where we are now trying to bring in these established methods and tools and hope to enable companies transition to a more circular economy and make youth and young professionals and these change makers that are needed in order to achieve that. With this, we have also formed a youth advisory board where we have one representative from each of the universities or from each of the partners. And in the beginning of the year, we appointed them to help us ensure that within the project, the youth perspective and the focus and the voice is represented. They are also having very different backgrounds and bringing super interesting insights and experience from both their PhD life, but also from industry into the project, and help us to co-develop the student or the youth community, by connecting to their networks within the country, but at the same time, they also help us shape the tools and methods we are developing as part of the CATALYST project. And with me today, we have two of them, and I'm very happy that they have agreed to give a brief insight and share some experience and learnings from their side. And with me is from EFLA, the engineering consultancy in Iceland, Lara Kristín, I'm sorry to not pronounce your last name correctly, Kovalsdottir, and also from the Alto Design Factory, we have with me today Floris van der Marre. And hopefully we have some interesting experience from your side on how you're gonna use the your job or your experience within university to drive the agenda towards a more circular, sustainable economy. And without further ado, I would actually like to invite Floris on the stage. And I know you have a presentation, so I will stop sharing mine, and I think you should be very easy able to share your. Yeah, fantastic. And also stop the time for around 8 minutes of pitch, and then we have time for a few questions if some of you here in the room would like to address something at Floris. All right, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Linda. So yeah, my name is Floris. I'm a design researcher and creative facilitator. And in relation to future perspectives, I'm particularly interested in exploring futures from the angle of non-dominant paradigms. So embracing points of view of those people that often are unheard, bringing those into the conversation of the people who are heard and respected and make those decisions. So in my facilitation and research, I focus predominantly on the tensions that results from the power imbalances in organizational change making. And today I prepared a very sort of overview presentation of how I got here into this PhD position. So first of all, like, it was influenced by my educational background. I did a bachelor in industrial design engineering, which is product design basically at Delft University of Technology, and there I learned and applied all these design processes, the techniques, the mindsets, and then I continued with a Master of Design Research for Interaction, partially also at Delft and partially at Middle East Technical University in Turkey. And there I learned more about the cultural differences, and also in Turkey there was much more emphasis on the social responsibility of a designer. And that's where I got really interested in not being a designer myself, but thinking more about how we can involve everybody to shape the environment as they wish it to be, so that people can live lives in a way that they deem valuable. So the responsibility aspect. So I then went on to do some work for the European Union. I supported community groups in Vietnam, developing sustainable consumption campaigns. And then I worked for MIT's International Design Center in Singapore, where I studied how to achieve and evaluate genuine inclusion. Also when working with different communities in design initiatives. So very much taking the community perspective on how they want to participate, how they want to be involved, how do we keep those voices heard and respected. Then after Singapore, I was approached by one of the design factories. And Design Factory is a place that supports processes for different parties to come together. So it's using design as a base, but very much about bringing designers and non-designers together. So people with a business background, people with psychology background, engineering background, and it's very much a platform for passion-based co-creation, which means that we want everybody to bring their own passion, your own perspective, your own experience, and then work together to solve today's challenges. So that's about facilitating meetings and ways of working between people who don't regularly work together. For example, students from different faculties, industry representatives, government officials, academia, communities. So it's about all coming together and leveling that space, or like democratizing that space, so that everybody can contribute to the outcomes. So initially I got approached by the Frisian Design Factory, which is in the Netherlands, and they asked me to support a shift in their educational program because they were going towards design-based education. So having design at the core of all of their programs, making every student somebody who transforms their field. That was the intention. They're still continuing that now, of course, that implementation. And after 2 years, I made the jump to Aalto Design Factory in Helsinki. And that was around the time I started also conversations to do a PhD. And they asked me to do a PhD there because I already had some research experience, right, from my master and the projects afterwards. And they wanted me to be the guinea pig, basically, for a new Design Factory PhD program, which is a collaboration between Aalto and then Design Factory in Melbourne, which is part of Swinburne University in Australia. So, well, we made it happen, got the paperwork together, and then 1 year later, I went to Australia, stayed for 1 year, collaborated with a rural hospital there, also co-creation, design facilitation, and studying the power imbalances there at the workplace. And then because of COVID restrictions and everything related to that, I returned to Europe to work again at Aalto. So I now mentioned 3 Design Factory, but actually there are many more. Just to give you an idea, we've got design factories all around the globe, all situated in universities or research institutes, all challenging traditional educational practices and all collaborating with the larger ecosystem around them. And it might actually be that this map is not up to date. I think I used an old picture. I think we're 29 or even 30 now. But anyway, we've got new design factories joining every year, and we stay in close contact, exchanging students, resources, teachers, learnings, experiences, all that kind of thing. So then this particular collaboration was between Aalto Design Factory and Design Factory in Melbourne, which means that I will need to fulfill the requirements of both universities, and then I will get both degrees when I do my defense. So that's one of the benefits of doing this double degree. You get resources from both, and then of course also the rewards from both. So a little bit more about my PhD topic, what I'm working on now. So it's amplifying unheard voices in organizations, working title, always in PhDs. And I concern myself with the fact that we still live in a world where certain groups of people more often dominate, silence others, undervalue other ways of understanding, expressing, attributing value, assessing meaning, all those things, which means that in our conversations, general or change-making conversations, certain views dominate due to the excess of power by those who can speak and be heard, respected, mindfully responded to as a result of their positionality because of intersections of like gender, ethnicity, role, personality, abilities, etc. And that matters in particular when people come together to do their work or to create a space to do their work effectively in organizations. Because if we don't actively address the hegemonic power imbalances, the biases will persevere throughout all engagements, and the outcomes, be it in the form of products, norms, policies, will reflect those various prejudices of the dominant parties, legitimizes them, and reinforces existing forms of oppression, and further delegitimizes other ways of knowing. So much of my research approach comes from the field of participatory design, which has been dealing this for a long time, but it's getting more complex every year since we're involving more different voices, which is very exciting. Like both for my practical facilitation and for my research, I include theories to address power imbalances, be it agonistic design, design for social justice, infrastructuring, indigenous theory. I've used feminist theory, queer theory, all to reveal like the tensions, hegemonic power imbalances, and deal with them constructively so that the outcomes are more sustainable and not informed by just dominant paradigms. So in terms of context, I've looked at a hospital in rural Australia, creating a workspace that is safer for people. I've looked at large tech-heavy organizations where designers are trying to create space for more psychological safety to allow creativity to flourish. I've looked at engineering companies where early career engineers are trying to succeed, looking at particularly the differences between the dominant engineers and those more likely to be outgrouped. For example, well, Black women, Asian women, etc. And then I have another study in the works with the United Nations High Commission of Refugees, where we bring together refugees, practitioners, and academia around the table to collectively evaluate the welcoming experience when you go to a new country. I hope that was about 8 minutes, and I hope I got everything in. I know this was a lot, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Floris, for the presentation, and very interesting perspective, and truly also something that is super relevant within the discussion on circular economy and the transition to a more sustainable future. Are there any questions from the audience? And I can see Ashad, you're raising your hand. Just open your mic and bring it forward, please.
Hi, Floris. I really find your work to be very interesting, and like I personally really enjoy like talking about sustainability in terms of social sustainability as well, because a lot of times people just consider environmental sustainability. So like where can I read more about your work? Like, is there some place where I can go and like get to know more about your work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that my work is not like the leading work being done right now. There's a lot of ongoing things that are yet to be published. I could send you a few things that I'm working on now. Actually, what might be interesting is like we just interviewed like over 100 designers in Finland and asked them about the relation between design and sustainability. And what you say is true. Most people, when they define sustainability, when we first ask them, they give environmental examples. And then we open it up and we ask about, okay, so what about social sustainability and what about economic sustainability? And there's more ways to promote sustainability. So that's actually a report that we're working on, and I could send you some sort of a draft there if you're interested.
Sure.
Yeah. But if you send me your contact info, I can send you a few conference papers that I've published already.
Sure. Thank you.
And another question from Shiraz, very brief.
So actually, just want to add on to what Akshat said. So my project was also focusing on design engineer, and I was working in automotive organization. So I was wondering, the 100 design engineers that you interviewed, like were they from different backgrounds? Because the challenge when it comes to integrating sustainability is different in different industries.
100%, yeah. So we interviewed people who identify as designers. So in the company have the role of designer, whatever that may be. Some indeed were engineers, other product designers, other graphic designers, and others had a business background and turned to design. And like you do those workshops, and then like if it clicks, it clicks, and then they became the advocates for that field. So I think, like, I mean, nobody can own the word or the role of designer. I mean, yes, there are certain like educational backgrounds that might support you to develop that kind of thinking, but also you can develop it anywhere and anyway. And I don't think at the moment we have clear boundaries or definitions of what is or is not a designer.
Yeah, definitely. I would love for you to also share the information with me along with Akshat.
100%.
I'll send on my contacts. Thank you.
Thanks.
Maybe we can also incorporate them on our digital community and have like a small folder in this area. I took a note, so that would be fantastic to make them public. All right.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Floris, for your presentation and insights into the research development projects that have been undertaken by the ones here today. In total, we have 8 groups represented from the CATALYST project, and they are giving a very brief pitch on their research findings. And I left the presentation scope very open, so I gave a few inputs on what could be relevant to share today, tapping into the 4 areas of research question and findings, bringing forward their concepts and maybe theoretical frameworks, but most importantly also highlighting the learnings and how the thesis somehow supports the transition to a sustainable circular economy. But what you all have is the frame of the time where I give you 3 minutes to present your findings. And afterwards, I hope we can have a 4-minute feedback. And some of you might have prepared 1 or 2 questions, some findings to open up the stage for this discussion. And also for everyone to recap. So we have different perspectives here today in the room, which I'm very much looking forward, and I'm happy to see that we are tapping into circular economy on a strategic level within the medtech industry. We are looking on sustainable product development and sourcing, and I hope we can use this to knowledge share and also give advice to each other, since some of you might have already finished their projects, but others might be actually continuously doing their research. So some of the feedback or points could be actually used to further develop their projects. So without further ado, I would give the stage to our first speaker or presentation on sustainable product development and sourcing by Shreyas. And your 3 minutes are starting when I'm switching the slide, and just let me know when I should go next.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for the brief introduction. So hello, everyone. My name is Shreyas, and I'm studying production engineering and management with a focus on product development at KTH University, and currently doing my thesis, finishing up with my thesis with a commercial vehicle manufacturer, Scania. And yeah, I believe that design engineers can create a sustainable world, given that they have the right tools and right processes, part of the right processes. So my project is sustainable product development and sourcing. If you move on to the next slide. To give a brief introduction about the project, the aim of the project is to integrate sustainability in the product development processes from a design engineer's perspective. So the 3 deliverables that we are expecting out of this project is, firstly, evaluation of design for sustainability tools. There are many tools available out there, both in academia and industry. So evaluation of those tools, and then creating a comprehensive toolkit. Then we have improvement of existing processes and systems within Scania. And then we have implementation of software and platform functionality, which I'll talk about in the coming up slide. Yeah, if you move on to the next slide. So currently Scania's strategy, the challenges that Scania is facing in the strategy is, Scania strategy for 2025 is 3 areas. One is carbon reduction, that is decarbonization, and circular business model, and then we have people sustainability. So this project is scoped down, focusing on 3 main areas: supplier sustainability rating as one of the areas for inputs, Scania's product development process, sustainability as a product property. So I'll discuss a bit more on that in the next slide. So keeping design engineers in the center, there are 4 main areas what we are focused on in this project. Firstly, trying to identify the key decisions that a design engineer makes on a day-to-day basis in a commercial vehicle manufacturing company. And then we have process improvements, that what are the different processes that a design engineer is generally part of, and what kind of improvements we can do in order to integrate sustainability. Then we have the evaluation of sustainability tools, and then trying to integrate the 3 pillars of sustainability, that is environmental, economic, and social. If you move on to the next slide. So the brief introduction of the research methodology. So apart from the literature study, there were many interviews and workshops that was conducted within Scania and also outside Scania to gather some information on the sustainability tools that are available. So looking at 3 main areas: big picture, design engineers, and then other roles, which includes other purchase team, manufacturing team, or even like authors of different research papers. So 22 interviews were conducted and 3 workshops conducted, and we gathered a lot of data on that, and then trying to analyze the tools. So Scania processes, like all different Scania processes and platforms, were evaluated in this research process. If you move on to the next slide. Yeah, so some of the key insight which I would like to highlight here was, as I said, 22 interviews, 1 brainstorming workshop, and 2 solutions development workshop was conducted. So what was analyzed is, in the company, it's noted that different teams have different tools that they use, and the same tools can be used in different ways in the different teams. For example, they have to tailor the tools in order to make it useful. For example, LCA as a tool that can be used. And then we have product development process. So in Scania, we mainly focus on the yellow arrow, which is like pre-development phase of the project. If you move on to the next slide. So 5 key decisions that was highlighted here was material selection, manufacturing process, part selection, design features, and surface treatment. I can discuss more on that during the discussion session about this. So final slide, what I would like to talk here is the 3 solution areas that we have highlighted in this project. So firstly, design for sustainability tools. So different tools were evaluated and comprehensive toolkit was created. So the toolkit was divided into 3 main areas: circular and Scania internal, which is based on their R&D toolkit. And then we have industry and academia tools. So that is designed for sustainability tools. Then we have process improvements. So there was different processes that a design engineer is generally part of. So trying to integrate sustainability in all those processes. So material selection framework, design engineer competency, or even manufacturing sustainability indicators to compare like different manufacturing processes while a design engineer makes a decision. Then we have part selection, which is more from purchasing perspective. Then we have software functionalities, which generally this design engineer uses CATIA as the primary software. So trying to see how we can incorporate sustainability model in the current software that design engineer uses. Then a priori as a software which can be added on with a carbon impact assessment. Yeah, that's about it. If there are any questions or any feedback, so there are many decision points and sustainability tools that was highlighted in this research, but would love to have some feedback on this if you have any points that you think is specific to automobile manufacturer. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. It was a little bit over the 3 minutes, but maybe then we just have a shorter question and answer rounds. Are there any comments or feedback from the audience? Just raise your hand if you have any questions or comments, or feel free to also open your microphone. Yeah, yes, I can see.
Hi, Shreyas. I just wanted to ask, like you had mentioned that you had also taken in consideration the social sustainability aspect. So in the key decisions, like where is the social sustainability aspect is being used?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because like you said, social element is always kind of tends to miss out. So when we saw like keeping design engineers role as a consulting role, which design engineer talks to different teams like purchasing team, manufacturing team, assembly, and have this all DFX methods. So where we saw the social element fit was where the purchasing team was involved in the conversation or like feedback for design engineer to make the changes. So when the like this elements or the material that is sourced from the supplier needs to have the social element. So they take care of it in the Scania sustainability rating. So the one thing what we focused was, what we highlighted was, if there is a transparency in this communication where we have the Scania sustainability rating, which is also available to the design engineer to make a decision when they make a comparative study between different suppliers. So that is the part where the social element was added. Otherwise, it's kind of tricky because design engineers' decisions do not directly affect social aspect. But the only 2 areas where they come in contact is the purchasing team and then also manufacturing team within Scania, where they have to think about the environmental impact or like health policies that they have like within the company in terms of ergonomics or working culture, working environment.
Thanks.
Any brief question to Shreyas? There is 1 minute left. Yeah.
I can say something if it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I think it was very, very cool. And I think it's like thinking of those different dimensions of sustainability, the social, economic, and environmental. I think indeed it would be interesting to see like where those balancing acts are taking place, and also within every balancing act, what kind of ring you're looking at, right? Like, is social the employees, or is social like the larger community, or is social like social injustices that take place on a larger scale, right? And the same goes for environmental. Like, are we worried about like the research that we need to produce, or are we worried about like keeping the parks in the village green, or again the entire world, like no overburning it, no overshooting the planet, right? And I think the same is true for economic also. I think for all those things, you sort of balance between those 3 and try to find some sort of an optimum. but also like what your target is or what kind of target you set for yourself as a designer influences that.
Yeah.
More a comment than a question.
No, thanks a lot for the comment. I think it's really important what you mentioned. But since like the scope of the project, we had to restrict it because that was too huge. So we had to focus mainly on the powertrain components and then be specific onto that. But I completely agree with you, like the points that you mentioned. Definitely.
Totally get it. I just wanted to say it because you said like the design engineer doesn't influence so many social aspects. And I was like, maybe within the company, not so much, but then like what you design influences how people interact and what people are able to do or not do, right? I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. Thank you.
That's a fantastic closing and wrapping up of the first presentation. Thank you so much, Rayas, for your presentation, and good luck for the final writing and handing in. And now I would like to ask Lotta Bolin. You're with us. Yeah, hi. And hi. Lotta will present the thesis or project result on the energy aspect of environmental improvement methods. And 3 minutes for you. We have a little bit of buffer, but I would generally like to ask everyone to kind of stay in this time frame. And it is starting now.
Yeah, my name is Lotta. I also study at KTH University in Stockholm. And I just finished writing my bachelor thesis, and it's about the energy aspect of environmental improvement methods. You can change that. And I've been focusing on the method Green Performance Map, which is used mostly at Scania and AstraZeneca, and I've been interviewing people from both of the companies. And the purpose of this method is to reduce emissions of carbon and also reduce resource use, but also to increase knowledge in the whole organization. So it's both like in the management level but also the operators. Yeah, this method looks at flows, input and output in different processes, and it's 8 different aspects as you see on the left. And you can see on the right, like how it looks for real when you actually do this method. You try to find every aspect of the method in your process, and you put it on like a post-it note or similar. And as you see on the picture, some of them are marked with red circles and some with green, and red means that they are prioritized, that you need to do something about them because it's a big waste of something. And you can change slide. Something I have understood is that the energy aspect is often not prioritized because it's often hard and expensive to do something about it, and that's why I've been writing this thesis. I have looked at another environmental improvement method called Energy Kaizen, which only focuses on energy. And in my thesis, I have been trying to like combine these methods, and this is a picture of my results. And it basically means that you don't take apart from one of the methods and put in the other. You take your whole method and you when you extend it with another method. So that's like yeah, my main results. And it's important for the circular economy part that you look on this energy aspect, because the energy aspect is often like it has most impact on the environment because it's such a big aspect. And one of the respondents in my interview study said, you have to kill the elephants before you kill the mosquitoes, which is a picture of that you have to make action on the big impact first. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lotta, for the very sharp presentation and very interesting perspectives and insights. Are there any questions, comments, generally maybe some feedback or follow-up questions? Then just raise your hand. Otherwise, I would actually have a question, and I don't know if it's maybe a little bit out of the scope, but within the company, so if you do this assessment, what would be then the next step for them when they have done these green performance mapping?
Yeah, this method comes from a bigger project where they investigate this, and they asked me to do like this kind of a comparison. And I have spoken to them, and they are going to look closer into this and try this. And then I proposed in my analysis to compare with another method too. So you have 3 methods you compare with each other. So to get a deeper result. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. Any other comments or feedback for Lotta from the audience? All right, then just otherwise feel free to share in the chat if you have any questions, and we can also take it later. And then we would go to the next presentation that is coming from, and now I have to pronounce the name correctly, sorry if I'm not gonna do that, Yaya Shurai. And
yeah.
Probably you can introduce your once again. And the topic is KPIs for circular economy in the context of OEM supply chain and business models. Again, you have 3 minutes to pitch, and then we have 4 minutes to discuss, and maybe if you have some questions in the end, take them as a point of departure. All right?
Yeah, sure.
Yours.
Yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Jayasuriya Venkatachalam and I study at KTH. So I'll be presenting on the topic KPI, key performance indicators for circular economy in context to original equipment manufacturers, the supply chain and business model. Next, please. So this project aims to answer 2 main questions. So what are the key performance indicators that can have an influence on the environmental, socio-economic, and the technical performance of the particular business models and supply chain? So this is important because this topic addresses on the 3 pillars of sustainability: environmental, economic, and social. I forgot to mention the social one here. It's together as a socio-economic here. And then the second question is to measure, how do we measure them efficiently? How do you measure this KPIs efficiently? Next, please. So I have 2 case companies, one is Gorene and another one is Bosch. So the white goods demonstrator is Gorene, which focuses on refurbishment, repair, and reverse logistics. The automotive demonstrator focuses on reverse logistics and remanufacturing. Next, please. So this is the framework of the project. I'm still in the data analysis part. So, and then I have collected the data and the KPIs, and then through interviews and discussions with the stakeholders. Next, please. So how does this project support the transition to a circular economy? So by implementing this project, we can see that it would encourage many existing original equipment manufacturers to implement circular strategies, so that they could get ideas of how to implement them properly and then measure the circular dimensions. So, and this would also help in evaluating and enhancing the business performance. And as I told before, it addresses the 3 pillars of sustainability. So that's very crucial, and that's how it contributes to a circular economy. So next, please. Yeah. So I'm still in the data collection phase. I still have to finalize with the stakeholders, and in the end, I have to set targets, measure, and then improve the performance of the case companies. So that's it from me. Thank you. Next, please. So I would like to hear your feedbacks on these 2 questions.
Yeah, and maybe if you read them out, thank you so much.
Sure.
It's even ahead of time, so you have 20 seconds. Then maybe we can, start.
Sure.
Passion.
So do you think a similar project is necessary for other business models apart from original equipment manufacturers? Could measuring performance could it be crucial in other business models as well? And is there a database that also has this key performance indicators of indicators that could be measured related to supply chain and the business model? Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for bringing them forward. And I know that we also have a few experts here with us. I don't know if there's any input or any comments on the questions that are put out. I would also give maybe a few seconds to reflect on them, but then I would just like to ask to come forward and open your mic.
Yes, maybe I can make some comment, Linda. I mean, this is a big project, yes, Surya, KPIs for circular economy. And I mean, there is an ongoing global project, especially in ISO. There is a dedicated working group working on developing the assessment methods for circular economy and specifically the KPIs. So it's not that easy. What I understand, like your focus is very much, I mean, when you talk about OEMs, so you're focusing on specific industry. So like because I remember my discussion, is it the white goods manufacturer and the automotive? Both, you are looking at both of them?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, when we are developing these KPIs, it need to be comprehensive. So it should be applicable to any type of business, not necessarily just the one sectors when we are talking about the circular economy. And regarding this, if there is a database, I mean, it's a work in process. It's still ongoing. There isn't much work. Still, there is an ongoing debate about how to measure circular economy. What circular economy is and how to measure it. So it's an ongoing, let's say, process. So hopefully, if you follow this latest developments from ISO, you will get a lot of input from there.
Yeah. Thank you, Shrek. Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for the elaboration. Any other comments or points of reference? Otherwise, I would also like to bring forward that we have a community within CATALYST of researchers and also of Nordic circular companies working within a different spectrum. So I'm pretty sure I will also share the link later on that that could be maybe a platform to explore if there is an answer to your second question, since I know these are really passionate people out there who might be able to give you some lead. And yeah, I will put it in the follow-up email afterwards.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, then we're gonna move on to the next project. And thank you very much for the presentation. And I'm super curious to learn also actually the end results of your thesis when you're done. So maybe we can have them somewhere where we can reach out, because it's a super relevant and interesting research you're undertaking. And next, I would like to ask Carl and Simon on the stage. And hi.
Hey.
And good to have you with us. And both of them are exploring how collaboration acts as an enabler for circular economy in the fiber-based packaging industry. I don't know if both Simon and Carl are giving the presentation, but anyway, just let me know when I should go to the next slide, and your 3 minutes are starting now.
Yeah, we're ready. So thank you for all the presentations so far. So now it's time for us to present our thesis on how collaboration acts as an enabler for circular economy in the fiber-based packaging industry. And it's by me, Simon, and Carl Stoff. Next slide. The purpose of this study is to get a better understanding of the connection between the levels of circularity and the levels of collaboration between the partners in the investigated industry, regarding the collaboration types, business model, and the adoption of circularity in terms of closing, slowing, and narrowing resource flows. Next slide. So the companies investigated in the fiber-based packaging industry were Tetra Pak, Stora Enso, Billerud Korsnäs, and Holmen Iggesund. The picture to the right represents a typical linear supply chain in the industry, from woodlands to the end user. The markings to the left of the figure represent which part of the supply chain the companies are primarily active in. We targeted companies from different parts of the supply chain. This allowed us to investigate external collaboration within the supply chain upstream and downstream. Next slide. So during the background research, we found different frameworks: collaboration types, levels of collaboration, circular strategies, and circular economic business models. We then combined these to create our own exploratory framework, which allowed us to analyze similarities and differences from specific collaboration. With this framework, we could look at links between collaboration and circular economy from the quantitative data. Next slide, please.
Yes, so we analyzed 3 collaborations with the help of our checklist and visualized them in a snapshot like this one. But in this short presentation, we will only look at the collaboration between Stora Enso and Sulapak, where the aim was to replace plastic straws with biocomposites. This picture shows the aim, level, and type of collaboration. And the aim here was to both slow and close resource flows. The level of collaboration was mostly on coordination, with only 2 parameters on the full collaboration level. The collaboration types in play here are shared goals, finance alignment, resource sharing, and joint product development. And finally, the outcome beneficial for circular economy are that they are extending resource value by creating recyclable products and the efficient use of resources by using biomaterials instead of plastics. And further, they are extending product value by remanufacturing of machines. Next slide, please. The interview showed that the main circular business models in the industry today is extending resource value in order to close resource flows regardless of the position in the supply chain, and is mainly done by promoting recycling of the products. Further, our findings showed that the interviewed companies all had shared sustainability goals with the different stakeholders throughout the supply chain, and some had measurements in place to measure the supplier's contribution to their own goal. We also found that there's a difference in the collaboration type depending on if the partners are active within the same industry or not. Collaborations between different industries tend to be joint learning and aligned goals, while collaborations inside industry borders often includes resource sharing, finance alignment, and joint product development. Finally, we have found that full collaborations, which is the highest level of collaboration, are rare in the industry, which could be due to the fact that they demand an open and transparent culture, together with full resource sharing. And that's everything from us. Thank you very much. You can look at the last slide here. So we have prepared 2 questions to the audience. I don't know if we have time for.
Yes, exactly. We have now around 4 minutes to discuss some of the questions you brought forward. And I don't know if either Carl or Simon, you want to read out and start with one of the 2, and then we can see if there's any contribution or comments, or maybe also some questions from the audience.
Yeah, we can start with the second one. It feels like that could be a discussion, more of a discussion. So collaboration within industry borders or collaboration with companies outside industry borders. What do you believe is the most valuable for the transition towards a circular economy? Do you have any?
Is there anyone who has any experience with collaboration?
I can bring in some experience from some work we've been undertaking also in the CATALYST, and it is maybe not so much academic focused, but it's more bringing in experience from the industry. And I think both of them are very valuable, but what we've been talking a lot within our approach in the Catalyst is actually to create this interdisciplinarity, so have collaboration with companies also outside the industry borders. And we have now, with the establishment of the circular economy, Nordic circular arena, we are trying to jointly bring together a network of different agents and of different industries in order to transition towards in order to speed up the transition to a circular economy. So I think it is super important, of course, to have the collaboration with industry borders, but if we are looking on the broader level, to also bring it outside the industry borders and knowledge share and bring together the different perspectives in order to achieve our 2030 agenda.
Yeah, it's really nice. It feels like the bar is higher when you have a collaboration outside industry borders, so it feels important to lower that bar. Yeah, really nice.
All right, there's also one other comment. Maybe just go ahead.
Yep. Like I'm doing my thesis in circular economy in the medical sector. So I came across a paper where like they actually talked about how like bigger companies can collaborate with startups or entrepreneurs in order to facilitate circular economy. And I think like in that case, it does not really matter if it's within industry border or outside industry border. Like for example, many big companies, they have to change their furniture after some time. So, and in that case, many times it is either like thrown into a landfill or some companies, what they do is like they actually buy off that furniture from them, or those big companies donate their furniture to these smaller companies. And that way, like the big companies are able to like reduce the amount of waste that's going to the like outside, and they are also able to fulfill their CSR goals. And the other companies kind of sell that furniture to people who might require them, like to students at a very cheaper price. And that way, like, so not necessarily like they are not in there exactly like the main supply chain process, but still like how they can remove the waste, or like kind of collaborate with smaller companies in order to reduce waste.
Yeah, definitely. You have to look outside the supply chain as well. Really interesting. Yeah, anyone else want to keep on the discussion or any questions to us?
Maybe also the first question could be interesting to take on, and I don't know if there's anyone else who would contribute, but what we can learn from a comparison between industries. I know here in Denmark, we are talking a lot about industrial symbiosis, and I don't know if you touched upon this in your thesis or if you heard of it, how actually the waste of one company become the resource of another company. So I think that is a super interesting perspective within circular economy to see, okay, what we can actually take, what resource flows could be actually beneficial for other companies, just as an example here from Denmark.
Yeah, we actually had a delimitation of not including industrial symbiosis, but we read about it. And when we came to the conclusions, we saw that if you focus on one specific industries, you can see other industries that can be a possible collaboration for industrial symbiosis. But we had to take a far trip. I think Denmark is the closest place to find what is called a park, eco-industrial park. So we couldn't really study that closer, but really interesting.
But fantastic. I think that was the 4 minutes as well. Thank you for the input and raised questions. Super relevant, talking about circular economy and partnership and joint collaboration models. Fantastic. And then we are on to the next one, and a little bit of a different angle. I think Anne and Matthias are with us here today, and I'm very curious to also learn about their approach. And it's a startup coming from the Norwegian Technical University called Woolero, working with 100% degradable packaging made of Norwegian surplus wool. All right, Anne and Matthias, are you with us?
Yes, thank you for the introduction. And also I want to say thank you for all of the presentations so far. It has been really interesting.
All right, I think the stage is yours, Anne, and just let me know when I should flip to the next slide.
Yeah, so you can just take the next slide. So we are going to present you our startup. It is called Woolero. So next slide, please. So my name is Anne Eleanor, and on my team I have Matthias and Ingrid. So I have Matthias here with me today, and we are developing packaging made of Norwegian surplus wool. Next slide. Yeah. Next slide.
Okay, so today packaging accounts for around 1/3 of the world's total amount of waste. And the e-commerce is responsible for a lot of this waste because that's an industry that is growing extremely fast, and and they also have an enormous package use. And there's therefore a great demand for both new, better, and more sustainable solutions. And while all this is happening, we have in Norway an unused resource that we think can solve part of this problem. Because every year, tons of Norwegian sheep wool are getting thrown away. Because due to the rough climate in Norway, the wool gets too coarse to spin into yarn, and it's therefore poorly suited for clothing production. And this makes both the demand and the price for Norwegian wool really low. And that means that it's more profitable for Norwegian farmers to either throw away or burn the wool rather than deliver it in for money. And that's something that we want to do something about. Next slide, please. Yeah, so Woolero uses the leftover wool to develop a stylish and completely degradable alternative to plastic packaging for the online stores. And these could be both envelopes, small cases, boxes, and so on. And then one may ask, why wool? But wool is a shock-absorbing, water-repellent, temperature-regulating, and completely degradable material. And this is qualities that makes it extremely suitable for a shipping material. So that's why we're focusing on that. Next slide.
Yeah, so our main value proposition to our customers is that we lower their CO2 footprint if you compare the wool to the use of plastic. And there are more and more people that are concerned about the environment. So we are on that trend. And this offers differentiation for the customers or the online stores. So if you can go to the next slide. So from the beginning, we have tried to make our business model as circular as possible, trying to focus on using the wool that is thrown away today. And we are using sustainability as our core value all the way. So that is a bit about us. We have a couple of questions for the audience. So the first question is, we are wondering what is the best method to convince customers that sustainability is a good investment? Because our biggest issue is to try to figure out how we can make customers pay a bit more for packaging than they do today.
Yeah, and maybe we can start out with this question, and very interesting. Maybe someone from the audience would like to comment on that, or has any experience or maybe also insights from their research or studies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we actually looked at packaging as well, and a big trend there is sustainability, but mainly from the end users. So the retailers really want cheap packaging, but if we look at the end users, they really value sustainability. So maybe push it from the end users and let them talk to the retailers if you've got a problem. Yeah.
That's really, really smart because when we have been talking to companies and trying to make them buy our product, then they are really positive and they really want to do something that is more sustainable than they do today. But when it comes to paying more than they do today, there is some problems, of course, because they are running their own business. So it's understandable, but I agree with you, Simon, on that. If we could convince the end users to kind of demand the change in packaging, then maybe that's a better place to start. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's another hand up.
I would like to say something. Like, I feel like what Simon said about, like pushing it towards the consumers, like imagine like right now also sometimes when we make maybe a greener choice, we pay a bit more, but maybe we have an incentive to do so. Like, for example, if the consumer chooses to get their package delivered in a wool packet, like your packaging, they are charged a bit more, but maybe they receive some reward points which they can use again for the particular retailer or the company that like who is selling it. So that could be like an incentive program both for the user, like the actual end customer, as well as the company who's buying your packaging, because ultimately like they are using the same points to buy it, like things later on. So maybe that could be an incentive.
That's really smart. That's and that would make value for the online store as well, because it would make the customer come back. Yeah,
exactly.
All right, and then is there another hand up? Yeah.
I had a question. Yeah, I mean, like Akshat had a really good point. I was thinking about the same, but my question was, what are the limitations that you have in terms of packaging size? Like the one that you showed, it was like envelope, but you also say that you can make boxes. So do you have to like customize the wool or like add some additional products to make it more stable?
So this is something that we are working on right now. We are making some prototypes, some different prototypes, trying to figure out how much it will cost to make different envelopes and boxes, and if the wool is enough in itself, if it's going to stay together while on the transport and all of those things. So that is something that we are working on. Ideally, I think maybe we would make some boxes, but we are not sure yet if that is possible. We are kind of really early phase of the business.
Yeah, thanks. It's wonderful. I really enjoyed listening.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for maybe a brief comment. I see there's another hand raised.
Hey, hello. Thank you for the nice presentation. And I just have one question. So I was wondering, your startup aims to protect the terrestrial ecosystem by reducing the packaging being used from the products from the trees. So why don't you consider adding life on land, the one more SDGs, which focuses much more in protecting, restoring the terrestrial ecosystems? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
And possibly in the future, that could be the partnership for the goals, in case you're collaborating with the public and private sectors. So that could be your future SDG.
Yeah, that's really a great comment. Thank you.
All right, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I know that there is probably a few more questions that you would like to have input on. And as I said, I would very much invite all of you to also join our digital community where we can take up these questions and actually continue the dialogue, and hopefully put you also in contact with some relevant industry partners or network that could help you in your further development. Very interesting approach. Thank you very much to also have a different perspective from a startup working within this field, and best of luck to you. And now we are continuing with the next presentation. I just need to switch to the next one, and we have Ariana with us here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, and her project is focusing on the role of energy systems in applying circular economy models in cities. If you just also have your camera on, yeah, that should be working.
Yes, yes.
All right, and the floor is yours.
All right, so hello everyone, my name is Arianna and my thesis is about the role of energy systems in applying circular economy model in cities. Next. So a background, cities account for 75% of global natural resources consumption and 80% of global energy consumption. So this means that applying the concept of circular economy at city level will be an important step towards sustainability. However, there is in particular a lack of application into energy systems. Next. So the chosen energy system of this thesis is the district heating system, as it is often neglected due to a lack of tools needed to analyze it, which results in an overlooking of possible benefits towards sustainability, such as unnecessary costs in decarbonizing the energy sector. And an example of a circular application into the district heating system is excess heat recovery, which consists in making use of heat that would otherwise be wasted, bringing us benefits, a boost in efficiency in the system, possible lower energy demand, reduced CO2 emissions, and economic gains. Next. So the case studies, the Stockholm district heating system, as Stockholm and overall Sweden have a well-established district heating system. However, the potentials of heat recovery are much higher than the actual ones, and exploiting these potentials would be really beneficial for Stockholm and Sweden especially, since there are high heat demands during winters. However, the problem is that there is a lack of clear business models, especially considering excess heat from other sources than industries, as for example from data centers, and there are also still many challenges. So the objective of this thesis is to understand how to support more heat recovery into the district heating system by detecting the barriers and the current business models. Next. So this is my methodological approach, starting from a literature review and possibly a survey. I aim to identify the barriers and the current business models, and the expected outcome would be providing recommendations on how to tackle the barriers and how to implement the business models in order to enhance heat recovery investments. And this could be a good starting point for the feedbacks, because I still have to clearly assess it. I especially lack data analysis. I was thinking a SWOT approach or system dynamics to use, but that still has to be assessed. And that's it, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ariana. That was spot on as well in terms of the timing. Great. And I just gonna finish or leave the last slide on. Are there any comments or feedback, or maybe also points that help Ariana on identifying this barrier and current business models? Maybe something you came across or some insights? Then I can see there is a hand raised, but I'm not sure if it is still from the last round. Harry Vignesh. Maybe it is. Yeah, okay. Then
Sorry, that was from the previous question.
Okay. No worries. What I'm actually also curious, Ariana, have you already set aside some, within your literature review, some barriers or current business models that could be implemented, or is it something you're currently still undertaking?
Yeah, I'm starting to look into the barriers, and from my understanding, it is mostly social economic barriers than technical barriers. And yeah, and the business models aren't clear, so there is a lack of investments because, for example, considering data centers have a different business strategy, and so it recovery investments with district heating companies aren't easy to make.
And are you working with a specific like company provider within Stockholm that could provide you some of the data to identify some of the barriers?
Not yet, but it would be a good
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it depends probably also very much on the angle and the perspective you're taking, if it is relevant to bring in a case. But I think we have seen also today and generally that maybe a close industry collaboration could be something very relevant in terms of getting relevant data to further analyze. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are there any other comments or questions from the audience? We have still a few seconds left. All right, but then otherwise, thank you so much, Ariana, for the presentation. And I hope that you can also use your questions in the forum and have the broader network contributing with some relevant points and leads maybe. But thank you very much. And we would go on to the next presentation, and that is Ashad, and talking on circular economy in Medtech. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic. All right, I just need to start the timer, and then the stage is yours.
Hi, everybody. I'm Akshat, and I am doing my master's in integrated product design at KTH. And my thesis, the title of my thesis is Circular Economy in Medtech. I have recently started it. So I'll take you through what work has been done and what are my expected results and how I am going to do what I am going to do. Next, please. So we all have seen that in this COVID-19 pandemic that a lot of masks and PPE kits have been used, and that has led to a lot of visible medical waste in front of us, which has raised concerns globally about the huge amount of medical waste that is regularly being generated. And when we actually look into it, we find out that 90% of the medical waste that is generated in today's world is from disposables. So that presents us a need that there's a really big need to incorporate sustainability in the medical sector, because it is one of the highest waste creating sectors in the world. Like the example could be that it has it generates a huge amount of waste, which is more than the waste generated by some countries in itself. But the issue is that the incorporating sustainability within the medical sector or the healthcare sector is not so easy, because it carries a lot of real costs. Like you have to prioritize infection control at the same time. Also, right now, the existing business models, they are hugely dependent on the sale of these single-use medical products. So it is important that we take into consideration infection control and the commercial viability of incorporating sustainability. So we need a holistic approach where all these factors go hand in hand instead of being opposing factors to each other. And according to research, circular economy is being promoted as one such approach. So I'm working with a company called Corindus. They are owned by Siemens. They have created a robotic vascular intervention platform. And in that particular machine, they use this cassette that you can see in the background. This is used to drive the stent and the guide wire into a patient. And the issue is, in order to make this high performing and reduce the risk of infection as much as possible, this cassette is single use. And after every use, this huge piece of plastic, which is like, I would say, this big, has to be thrown. Next, please. So in order to conduct this study, we'll be doing a case study with Corindus, in which I'm looking into the design of the product, the business model of the product, and the customer perspective from purchase till the disposal. So I'll look into how we can make the design of we can change the design of the product to make it maybe more sustainable in terms of like it can be easily recycled, reprocessed, or re-sterilized. Then we can look into different business models, maybe wherein like the company can buy the cassettes back, re-sterilize them, and then sell them at a cheaper price. Or maybe we involve other smaller companies or maybe startups where these cassettes are collected and either upcycled, recycled, or downcycled into something else. The third thing is we also want to see how the customers handle this entire chain, so that we can understand how they dispose it and how we can change their behavior. And by looking into all these things, we'll like analyze this and gather insights in order to, can we move to the next slide, please? So the aim is to find an approach that can reduce the environmental impact of Corindus, like by looking into the cassette that they have and the healthcare sector in general and the viability of this approach. Also, we also wanted to look at different business opportunities that can arise with a more sustainable business model, which the companies are currently not like exploiting. And maybe there are other third-party companies that are actually exploiting these smaller opportunities. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, or I don't know, Ashkat, if you have maybe also some reflections you want to share with the audience, but a very interesting topic, and super curious to also learn some of the results and outcomes of your study.
Yeah, so right now, I think like one big factor that's kind of very ambiguous are the regulations. So I like really want to look into the regulations that exist, because the regulations sometimes can stop you from doing like things, like maybe the regulations are made in a way that they are unintentionally not promoting circular economy because of the, as you can say, like there's a huge stigma about re-sterilized things or reusing things because of infection control. And specifically in like developed countries, like so in underdeveloped or like developing nations, you still look into like reusing things more because you have less resources. And in developing nations, like that could be an issue. Like it's a boon and a curse at the same time, because you have resources, you tend to focus more on like infection control, and maybe it's not that much of an issue. So that is something that I really want to know more about by talking to people working in healthcare, by people who are making these regulations. And at the same time, I think like I cannot include it in the scope of this thesis, but I think the behavior of people can affect like this a lot. Like maybe how a patient would feel if they are using a like a refurbished cassette, like, or a refurbished injection. So that is something that we really need to look into, and also like the habits of the healthcare workers. But I think like if we are able to find out an approach where at least we can bring a huge change from the design perspective or the business perspective, this can like lead to a big change in the entire medical or the healthcare sector in general, because that would be like an example. So, but I really would like to have your feedback in terms of like how would you actually implement these things in practical scenarios, because it's really good to like look at them in theoretical scenarios that we can have a new business model, everything. But then these things, like how they happen, like in reality, can be very different or can be very difficult to implement. So have you had any experience in maybe the medical sector or the difference between the reality and the theory section, something like that.
Thank you very much, and really nice conclusion and challenge or question. Are there any comments, reflection on that point that Ashkat made from the audience? Then maybe you can just open up your mic and bring it forward. Otherwise, I'm also happy to bring an example. So within CATALYST, what we are trying to use are workshops and actually small boot camps to change this behavior. And by starting out with having a challenge on an overall perspective, talking to companies, a lot of times it is, okay, how do we actually start our transitioning within circular economy? What are the opportunities within circular economy, particularly for us, is a question which many times we hear in the very beginning. So we would start out with the small identification workshop for them actually to get a clear picture what is in particular relevant for this. And there we have a toolkit developed by some of the researchers here in DTU, Technical University of Denmark, the mechanical engineering department that is called Match. And it's 30 questions that help the company to identify, okay, what is their current status? Where are they actually already in the transition, or where is a huge opportunity for them to invest actually into a transition? Yeah, just one example. Yeah.
Is this toolkit like available to everyone, or is it like a private thing which?
No, that is online for free, and companies can sign up, and then they would get the results and can share it openly with anyone that is interested, so to say.
Can I like know the name of this toolkit, please?
Yeah, I bring it. I put it on a follow-up email as well, and I'll write you a direct link, and yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Note on that one. No worries. All right. The time is up. And in case there's any other reflections, just also feel free to put it in the chat, or maybe afterwards when we have some time to talk, feel free to connect to each other. Then I would like to start with the last presentation of the day, and it is focusing on distribution of e-groceries in cities using electromobility. And it's a mixed method approach, which is presented by Harry Vignesh. And I hope you're with us. I can see that your camera has opened and your microphone as well. So yeah. Let me just start the timer. And the 3 minutes are starting.
Thank you. Okay, so my project is much more focused on distribution of temperature control e-groceries in cities using electromobility, which is addressing the problem in the last mile delivery when it comes to e-commerce logistics. So this project is sponsored by the FFF, which is indeed sponsored by the Traffic Workit. So if you move to the next slide. I'm Hari, and I'm here to deliver the presentation on green logistics in last mile delivery, on which my project is specifically based on applying electromobility in the last mile distribution in cities. If we move to the next slide. So as we all know about the green logistics is a concept in which which links between resources, products, and indeed from the products to consumers. So we believe that we could create such a huge impact when it comes to improving the sustainability in the logistics, and which in turn will promote the circular economy benefits. So if we move to the next slide. This is such a big number. As you could see, 33 billion tons of CO2 is being released each year, and this is the data from the year 2019. And well, this is a big number, and this is what motivated us to do a project on this. And if you go to the next slide, we could see the project background and the purpose. We focus to achieve the fossil-free transport by 2045 and to improvise the sustainability of the last mile part of logistics. And our project aims to address the limitations specifically related to logistics, technology, and infrastructure, and the commercial application of electromobility when it comes to delivering e-groceries to homes. So we focus much more on the pilot testing of the vehicle and the simulation modeling and experimentation and establishing the logistics framework. If we move to the next slide. So along with the Shoaib, we have formulated the research questions. So investigating the potential parameters and analyzing the interplay from the test observation and simulation modeling, and discussing the challenges observed. So these are the top three research questions we will be focusing on this project. So if we move to the next slide. As you could see the project roadmap up here. So we start with the literature study and we go for the conceptual model development and the test procedure and observations, and the fourth stage would be the simulation modeling and experimentation. The penultimate stage is analysis and discussion, and finally we go for the key findings. So this is the project roadmap that we have been following for this specific project. If we go to the next slide. We have the parameters and the implications. These are the on the left, you could see the parameters that we have taken into consideration after the semi-structured interviews and referring to the literatures, which could impact the vehicle performance, economic performance, and customer satisfaction, and one more, the environmental performance, which is much more focused. And if we go to the next slide. Which would be the project outcomes. So this outcome promotes the transition to a green logistics, helping the realization of the closed-loop supply chain. And we investigate the potential parameters, as you have seen in the before slide, from literature reviews and interviews, and identifying the following measured parameters. One would be the vehicle performance we compare the conventional, which is the internal combustion electric vehicle using fossil fuels with electric vehicle, and environmental performance and the customer satisfactions. Here we have the benchmark, which is the conventional vehicle, and we compare this specific in order to tackle the cold chain logistics problem, because we have a huge problem when it comes to the technology. We have to use the battery for both the mobility and for cooling the products. So this project is focused on improving the sustainability in the last mile part. And moving on to the final one, which is discussing the challenges. Sorry, can you go back to the previous slide? Discussing the challenges from the test observation, data analysis, and simulation experimentation. Thank you. And to the next slide, please. That's all from me, and I'm very happy to hear your opinions and the suggestions and questions. And you can find me at this email. If you have any questions, you can just shoot up. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation and the insights on your thesis moving forward. And I was just curious, you now said that you identified already through a literature review some of the core challenges, and could you maybe just in brief sum them up? What are the major challenges within the industry in order to make that happen?
Yeah, for sure. So when it comes to using the vehicle for the last mile delivery, I would say the total energy consumption of the vehicle, because the energy is being taken out for both the movement of the vehicle as well as cooling the products inside the container. And apart from that, I would say the total distance covered by the vehicle, because this has much more impact on the vehicle performance. And when it comes to the total CO2 equivalent emission, so the conventional vehicles, that measurement parameter are much more higher. So we have a positive impact when we use the electric vehicle. So that's what we had found using some evidence. but this feasibility study is much more for using electromobility when it comes to the cold chain logistics.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much on the elaboration. Are there any other questions from the audience or reflections, comments, curiosity? Then just feel free to bring forward them. We just maybe give a few seconds for reflection. Okay, at the moment there are no more, but maybe it could be interesting if you have any other questions to bring them up also on the platform. So with the network that we have to maybe bring forward some relevant leads for you as well. Thank you very much, and best of luck for the delivery or for the continuous development, more to say, of your thesis work. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And that is also for us now the time to actually celebrate all of us. A big hand and applause. And I wish we could be in person and high-fiving each other for the great presentations that we have seen today. So please, everyone, give yourself a big hand. And I hope that it was, in a way, a good learning for you. And maybe for some, it was a little bit of a test to pitch their current findings, to prepare for a presentation in front of a professor or research group. For others, it could have been also a great test to get ready for the defense that might be coming up in some time in the future. And 3 minutes are simply a very short time to bring forward research findings. But I think it's a nice format to try. And I hope you got out some relevant insights, inputs also from the audience here, and hopefully some that might be actually helping to further develop your projects in the future. Cool. There was another countdown on my side. What I would like to briefly talk before closing the session, and also get a little bit feedback from your side, is that we're currently developing this CATALYST student label, and it is a label that is handed out to the students that are part of the Circular Economy Development Program. And since we only started in December and we didn't have time to kickstart the whole program, we are piloting this closing and final presentation of the different projects that have been running under the CATALYST. And for the next year, the idea is to actually start with a project kickoff where we would have the presentations in the beginning of the semester, and then closing with a very similar session as we had today in the end of the semester in December. And students have the possibility to get this badge showcasing that they are working within circular economy by writing either a thesis or participating in a course that is focused within this specific area, and participated as well in an event of the CATALYST. And we are offering a lot of different webinars, lunch talks by the Circular Economy Initiative at KTH, for instance, or such an event as today, where you could actually bring forward some of your findings and sharing with the bigger audience. So I would like to very much invite you to, if you wish, to use this to actually promote your action on your LinkedIn, because I think it's important that we are showcasing the agenda and pushing forward the movement across the younger generation and young professionals. And with this student label, you can have this basically after accomplishing the thesis and the event today. and connected to your LinkedIn. And that is done in a very simple step by getting an invitation from our side, from the CATALYST group, and adding it to your LinkedIn and showcasing that you have a specific knowledge within the area of circular economy. So I will share a link afterwards where you can sign up and see if that could be something useful for you to also use for the future and your career in the upcoming years. And then I also been talking a lot about it, our CATALYST digital community, which we have launched last Tuesday. It was together with Nordic Circular Innovation, that's our funding partner, and Nordic Circular Arena, Nordic Circular Hotspot, that is an umbrella organization across the Nordics. And especially the CATALYST community is trying to connect young professionals, students, researchers across the Nordics that are passionate about circular economy. And we hope to be this go-to platform where we can share relevant insights, share relevant research projects, findings, maybe also interesting articles in the different fields relevant to circular economy. As we said today, it is super important to have this holistic and interdisciplinary perspective when talking about circular economy. So with this group, we hope to be a step closer in creating this or in further accelerating this transition. And I would very much like to invite you to join the Nordic Circular Arena and then also join our CATALYST digital community to also stay up to date on interesting events that are happening in the future, and our workshops that we're planning to start after the summer, which are open for young professionals and students to get hands-on experience on method and tools that support companies in the transition to a circular economy. And last but not least, I also wanted to highlight that tomorrow we have a webinar hosted by actually the Circular Economy Initiative at KTH. And so, yeah, I think he's here with us, Scania, presenting a lunch talk on the circular business journey of the company. So the link is out also on our digital platform, and feel free to join and listen in. And the same for the fall semester, we will be having different talks and webinars coming up.